there was a cleansing of Black people in the major news spaces once Barack Obama became elected, and the hush hush quiet talk was that that white people were already agitated with the fact that they had a Black man leading the country. They didn't want to wake up every day and see a Black man, or a Black perspective giving them the news. We also have to remember from an entertainment space, right? Michael Strahan came into America's homes around this same time. And so they are, the level of sanitation became very apparent, I think, for us thinkers, all of us that are thinkers, not people that are intelligentsia, but people that are thinkers, all of us that are thinkers, right? Began to really see the sanitation of the news media once Barack Obama became elected.
If you want to see good news, you don't see on regular TV. From another perspective, something relative to your needs. And we gonna have deep subjects, and we gonna turn the lens. And there's no topic we won't skip, so please don't miss weekly, Tune in to weekly to check in, weekly check in, weekly check in, weekly check in, tune in to weekly, check in, weekly check in.
Welcome to Arc Republic News. My name is Kaya Nyami Shivers. I am in conversation today with Dr. Sharice Janae Nelson. Thank you. It has been so long. It is so refreshing to talk to a sister. Not that I don't love my brothers. What's up, Dame in Africa? But it's so good to chop it up with you. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am fine. We have so much to talk about the pre-show.
Yes.
We've been on a pre-show for about an hour already. So I said we need to start this right now. And what we were talking about, and this was actually a topic that wasn't scheduled, was that Black News Channel shut down about 2 weeks ago, citing that they didn't have the money or they didn't have the revenue in order to continue on. As well, subsequently, from it shutting down, now its employees are fighting to get their last check. And so Sharice was talking about the ramifications of that and basically the media landscape about that, and giving the example of Kathy Hughes. So I didn't want to stop your flow like that, but I wanted to us to come in because sometimes our pre-show has so much information. I don't want people to lose it. But what is your perspective? Because
I'm the history person, right? I'm the person that pulls in the history of this thing. So let's start all the way back when Bill Cosby first started talking about buying NBC, right? And the effects on his career since that pronouncement. Let's talk about the fact that Oprah, when she transitioned from doing the Oprah Winfrey Show and started her own channel, how she had to fight Viacom to get to maintain the rights of her channel and then get on the main media networks, right, through Viacom, because everyone has to remember that there's basically 5 companies that then control your media: Disney, the NBC networks, Fox, Viacom, and then CNN, which is a conglomerate that's kind of been mixed in with Comcast. So it's
now, where does Warner Brothers fall under that?
Warner Brothers is a conglomerate as well. So it depends. Like, they've restructured a few times, but Warner Brothers is a huge part. So Warner Brothers has rights inside of Viacom. Warner Brothers also, put it like this: Warner Brothers is pitted against Disney.
Right.
And so there's 5 or 6 major folks that control all of the news, regardless of the number of channels. And so the reason I'm giving that history is because the Black News Channel closing or citing lack of funds is not something we haven't historically seen. We've seen this with the first Black billionaire in Oprah Winfrey, right? And many have argued that
that was Robert Johnson with BET. BET.
Well, let's deal with BET, because who bought BET?
Right, Viacom, right.
Viacom, right? And moved the headquarters, right? And this is the biggest thing: moved headquarters out of DC and moved those headquarters to New York. What does that do? That dries up Black talent in the DC area. It dries up your ability to have direct access then to the capital politics or the nation's politics, right? There's all it dries up the working capital for Black families or middle Black income families in DC, and the really closing down of that station was huge. If everybody remembers, Sunday Best on BET was taped in the DC area. So the reason I want to give that kind of longitude piece to your point, Kai, about BET, Oprah Winfrey, all of it, even Byron Allen, right, suing for the fact that they weren't getting the same shares of TV rights. All of this is history that we understand when it comes to the media, and that oftentimes Black news channels don't do their homework enough to understand how to be strategic. And so I was not aware of the fact that they were closing down, but I'm not surprised. And I'm not surprised due to the example I was giving you in the pre-show with Kathy Hughes. Kathy Hughes, to play ball with Radio 1 and TV 1, was essentially forced to sell 49% of her company through shares. And she did that to then continue to be on the main networks. And once she did that, she had to fight tooth and nail to regain control back in the company. She had 51% control, from what I understand. They left her the majority of control, but to basically become more of an 80 or 70% shareholder, she had to fight and be strategic about who she asked to buy shares back of the company so she could have control again. And this story was told to us in 2015 at the Congressional Black Caucus Legislative Weekend, where they honored her. And this is when the story was told. And she was even nervous about the story being told, about, what she did. Names were not given, or explicit names were not given about who bought the shares, et cetera, and how they did it. And so that's why, in many ways, Tyler Perry is seen, although you may like his movies or not, as like an anomaly, because he's been able to really skirt the game. And so it's sad. It's sad to me to hear that the Black news channel has shut down, but it's not surprising. And who I think about the most in this is Mark Lamont Hill. As one of those brothers, regardless if you agreed with him or not, that was, from what we would consider the Black intelligentsia class, right? Really providing another perspective and holding Black people's feet to the fire, right? Regardless of who they were, and just basically holding people accountable. So I'm not surprised. I'm saddened to hear it, but I'm not surprised.
Right. I think anytime, as a media person, anytime that you hear a news source that really is digging into the world from the lens in which it offered, it really is disappointing, and it's disheartening. And it is a continuum of a very long struggle of Black press, the Black press, or Black people in press. But I wanted to also comment on some of the historical issues that you talked about. Is that we must bring up, well, first of all, we must bring up the 1968 Kerner Commission, right? The 1968 Kerner Commission, which is a report that comes out after MLK was assassinated, and there were so many riots in the country. The government had to figure out basically how you're going to calm these Negroes, and even just the country, because it wasn't only just Black people who were participating in civil unrest, even though they led it. And in the Kerner Commission came out that, and they did a series of surveys and reports in Black communities. It came out that part of the issue, Black people said that they didn't see themselves in the media. And so then they began these very strategic programs in which Black people were seen. But as we know, a lot of these presentations were disempowering in some way, shape, or form. However, what we do,
and very sanitized,
and very, either or. So you either had I'm trying to think of some of these things, but this predates a lot of people. But you might have what is this woman's name? She is but she played a nurse And she was like the first Black woman, working professional. Or then you had a lot of criticisms were towards what is that? It's the projects in Chicago, Good Times, right?
Good times.
So you had these, and then you had blaxploitation films that came out. What a lot of people, I'm a media studies scholar, a lot of people don't know is that it wasn't, this is my interpretation of it. It wasn't the fact that these movies were necessarily problematic. Black people still, even though there were a lot of Black people in front of the camera, and then some who made decisions, overall, it was white money. It was greenlit by Hollywood and these entities. So Black people didn't have full control in terms of how you develop and grow and evolve. Because what we know is that, like with any station that we've seen, or production studio we've seen, you have to evolve. So you might start here, but at your height, you become something else. So, Blacks in film and TV did not properly evolve, but then you have the Cosby Show that comes out in the 1980s, right? So, which also, it's like, okay, well, we're presenting Black people in a certain light, but a lot of people said it's not reflecting the conditions and the realities of Black people right now, because it's not reflecting that while the government, it begins to open up these mandates that say that you must have a more diversified media landscape, they also didn't account for the fact that, and this is documented, that there were new programs to neutralize Black power groups and movements, even to compromise civil rights members or former civil rights members. And so you have drugs just tearing through, specifically crack, cocaine, tearing through Black communities and urban centers in America. You have the Cosby Show that is very aspirational, but it neglects the real realities that were going on. Harlem is getting hit. Harlem is getting, this is like when Harlem and DC
and Oakland,
South Central, Chicago, Detroit, all of these very strong urban centers that are voting in Black mayors or Black council members are now getting destroyed by this drug culture that is fueled by the U.S. government, right? And the intelligence agencies. I mean, it is documented. So, but then you move on. You have the Telecom Communication Act, the 1996 or 1996 or 96 Telecommunications Act under the Bill Clinton administration, which actually breaks down which absolves a lot of the mandates to keep media not only diversified, but also locally owned. So this is where these conglomerates that you were talking about, Sharice, begin to buy in wholesale TV stations, radio stations, cable stations. And so now what we have are about, 5, and that's even debatable. People say it's only 3, but you have 5 major media companies who control a lot of it. And so as a lot of independent voices, be they Black, white, Asian, Latinx, whatever it is, tries to navigate around it, all of these platforms that we're using are changing the game, like a YouTube or a Facebook or Twitter or Periscope, all of these different ways in which these voices that try to give another narrative, there's always this dance and negotiation. So I'm glad you brought it up, but I want to say that it really shocked me that the Black News Channel, it shocked me when I saw that the Black News Channel shut down. I'm not in everyone's business, so I didn't know what the whole setup was about. I remember the Black News Channel starting or trying to start in 2018 when I was at the National Association of Black Journalists. And so I was actually approached by, I want to say the brother who I forgot, it was because I think it was supposed to start in Tallahassee or something like that.
Yes.
And so the brother, I want to say he went to FAMU like I did. And so we started this conversation and he told me about it. And he actually, encouraged me to, perhaps, work with the Black News Channel. And I told him in the future, I was trying to get Arc Republic off the ground. But I want to say with all of that, I thank God and the ancestors that we are still here, because this is very hard work. This takes
hard work.
Very hard work. That's one thing. And it takes a lot of resources in order to run in order to run this. And on top of that, people like yourself, Sharice, have stepped out and trusted me and said, I'll bang with you. Like I'll talk with you, because people are putting their careers on the line. And sometimes we're in conversation. We may not say what's politically correct. We might not move what is politically correct. And so I thank you. People have been, I thank you so much. I think you're dope. I think the people I talk to are dope. You add value, you add perspective, and it is so needed. I started Arc Republic. And rarely do I talk about why I started Arc Republic. I started Arc Republic at the height of a politically divisive media landscape, where it was very clear to me that the media or the news that we consume wasn't about informing people in order to have the tools necessary to navigate. It just became partisan politics. And when it becomes like that, those who are at the bottom or at the periphery of these power structures and these fights are left out. And I said, I got to do something. This is one, it's whack. News is whack. I'm not, I remember when Obama got elected, I think there had a brother with locks for a good 6 months. Next thing you know, I don't know where that brother went, but it's not only is it whack.
Well, that's right. Now you did down my street, right? And what we know for a fact is that there was a cleansing of Black people in the major news spaces once Barack Obama became elected, and the hush hush quiet talk was that that white people were already agitated with the fact that they had a Black man leading the country. They didn't want to wake up every day and see a Black man, or a Black perspective giving them the news. We also have to remember from an entertainment space, right? Michael Strahan came into America's homes around this same time. And so they are, the level of sanitation became very apparent, I think, for us thinkers, all of us that are thinkers, not people that are intelligentsia, but people that are thinkers, all of us that are thinkers, right? Began to really see the sanitation of the news media once Barack Obama became elected.
Right. And I just remember the stories that my mother in particular told me about the men in her family, and that they might not have graduated high school, but one thing they did every morning was read the newspaper while they were drinking coffee. And so that information they gathered, I know that's right. Here we go. What does mine say? Cup of sunshine, right?
Right.
The information they gathered was the currency they used in order to navigate and negotiate their day. I mean, we're talking about, this is in segregation, the segregational South. A lot of my mother's, a lot of the men in my mother's side were either entrepreneurs or they were in the military. And so, and my grandmother and grandfather, my maternal grandmother and grandfather were some of the first people to join the NAACP in Lafayette, Louisiana. They had to hide the fact that they were card-holding members, or it would have been possibly death, definitely physical harm to them. So you needed the news in order to navigate. And so I take that ancestral knowledge, and I take that legacy I come from. And so this is like one of the many reasons why I Arc Republic, I've done a lot of things in my life and I haven't finished them, but Arc Republic, I'm riding till the wheels fall off. When the wheels fall off, we picking up the Cadillac and we walking with it, because it's so important. It is so very important that we hear our voices. And also it's not just, and another thing is that I've always said Arc Republic it's a global news bureau, which means anybody could come on Arc Republic and talk. But we have been so conditioned in how we consume news, who reports the news, that a lot of folk from other communities are hesitant to come on Arc Republic because they see this Black face and they got my head wrap on today, and they're like, oh, that's a Black thing. But you know what? I'm banging with who bangs with me. And Sharice, I appreciate you rolling with me. We have a lot to talk about, but final thoughts on this. When I read that, I was absolutely stunned, because I think they said hundreds of people lost their jobs. And I wish that I could hire more people, because I need more people. But also it's about, we haven't even gotten into the politics of who gets the money in media, because media is funded in probably about 2 or 3 ways. One, it's funded traditionally by advertisement. That's the traditional way. Secondly, it's funded by grants like the Knight Foundation and other organizations that give money to news bureaus. And then the third, which is a new model, is through memberships, which is probably about 3 or 4 years old. Well, Arc Republic actually started as a membership. This is a template that I borrowed out of Day Correspondent out of Europe. When I launched it in 2017, it didn't go well for Arc Republic. Now everybody and their mama got a Patreon account, a membership, and so on and so forth. But these are the 3 ways. And so part of my challenge is I didn't want to do advertisement, because there's this term called darkening the newsroom that is used. Darkening the newsroom is, well, if Ford Motors gives advertisement dollars, then they don't say it, but it's an expectation that in some way, shape, or form, you cover something to do with Ford, and it better be positive. As a Black or a small owned news organization, if you want the money. So you're at the mercy of your advertisement. There's also like underwriting and sponsorship too, as well, which is not a form of advertisement, but it can be. Now you have the grants. What I did not know, because I was a journalist, I wasn't a media owner, I was a media maker. What I did not know is that most journalism organizations are nonprofits. Did not know that. And
which means they have to spend all of that money every year to keep that status.
Yes, and they have to spend all the money, and also a lot of the grantors only give money to nonprofit organizations. So I, as a for-profit, was getting blocked. But what I found out, because I started going to some of these conferences, I found out at a conference in DC in 2018 that, let's just say, Sharice, you were with the Knight Foundation and I have Arc Republic. You backdoor me and say, girl, don't worry about it. I'm going to somehow finagle and give you some money. I didn't have those connections, right? So I, as Arc Republic, would go to these spaces and they would say, oh, I'm sorry, but you have to have 501c3 status. But they would be giving their homies the money. Right. So that was another thing. And then with the membership, so that the membership model can work. It can be very effective. But when you are dealing and when you're dealing with folk now who are really struggling financially, it becomes a challenge because they're making decisions on who should I put my money in investing. And particularly with media, when a lot of us have been conditioned that Washington Post, New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News are the media makers or the mainstream channels that you want to get your information from, right? So these are the struggles that I have. I very rarely talk about it, but I think this is apropos talking about the closing of Black News Channel.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Arc Republic. If you like what you see and you like what you hear, you can actually keep this mothership going. How? You can make a tax-deductible donation in several ways. One, Cash App us at Arc Republic Media. And you can also go on our website, arcrepublic.com/donate. As well, you can also donate to our fiscal sponsor and our sister organization at Black Farmers Index, that is Cash App, or also go onto their website, blackfarmersindex.com. We are 2 Black women-owned media organizations who share our profits so folk can thrive.
Yeah, and the one thing that I will definitely, I think, close this out with is white folks are never going to completely cede the reins, right? They're never going to, I know that we're due to talk about Ukraine and Russia, and what we've seen is that controlling the information means controlling the people. And so white folks are never going to totally allow all of the information to not be controlled by them. So the question then becomes, how do we continuously elbow our way into the space and keep our morals intact? And to me, that's I don't want to say the conundrum, but that's the consistent fight. That's the drumbeat of all of this is how do we continue to promote white folks that are far more honest brokers than those that are not, so that we can continue to elbow our way into the space, which is why I'm not surprised. I'm saddened, but not surprised to hear that the Black News Channel has closed down.
Right, and I hope the people who have lost their jobs find employment and they continue in the media space now more than ever. It is needed.